Carl Jung discovered that 3 out of 4 of his most dangerous patients showed the exact same psychological sign, and almost nobody notices it when it appears. The most unsettling detail? It doesn't show up in aggressive or obviously toxic people, but in those who seem trustworthy, charismatic, even empathetic. That's exactly what makes it deadly. By the time you realize it, you're already trapped in the web. This sign has the power to wreck relationships, stain reputations, and cast you as the villain in a story you never wrote. And the worst part is the injustice, because no matter what you say or prove, facts lose their weight in the face of blind conviction. Maybe you've felt this yourself. Accused unfairly, pushed into isolation, and left doubting your own sanity. What Jung revealed is that this pattern is one of the most dangerous forces the human mind can produce. Recognizing it isn't optional, it's survival. Because once you see how the mechanism works, you'll never be fooled by it the same way again. And this is where the explanation begins. Behind this sign lies something called shadow projection, and understanding it changes everything. Shadow projection is when someone dumps on you what they can't stand to face in themselves. It's an invisible psychological trick, but man, it's devastating because the person has zero doubt. They believe with their whole soul that the problem is yours. That's the exact sign Jung spotted in 3 out of 4 of the most dangerous patients he ever treated. The kicker? Almost nobody notices it in time, and by the time they do, they've already lost friends, respect, or even life-changing opportunities. The real danger is in the conviction. It's not someone saying, "Maybe it's you." It's someone pointing the finger with 100% certainty that you're the guilty one. Picture this. You're arguing with somebody who's staring at a dirty mirror but swears the dirt is on your face. That kind of twisted logic sparks outrage. You know you're clean, but you'll never convince someone who's already decided you're the villain in their story. Chances are this has already happened to you. Being called manipulative by the actual manipulator. Branded selfish by the one who always needs to control everything. Labeled negative just because you spotted the problem before everyone else. In those moments, it feels like the whole world turns against you. And the most painful part? The harder you try to explain yourself, the more you end up feeding the false narrative they built about you. That's where the poison of this sign lies. It doesn't just wreck your reputation with others, it starts eating away at your own confidence. Suddenly you're asking yourself, wait, am I really the problem? That tiny doubt is the first step toward silence, toward isolation, toward swallowing injustices as if they were the truth. And that's exactly why Jung insisted. Spotting this pattern is a matter of survival. At the same time, there's huge relief when you finally realize you're not crazy. That gnawing sense of being unfairly treated wasn't all in your head. It was shadow projection at work. Someone else couldn't handle their own darkness, so they threw it on you. Understanding that is like flipping the light switch in a room you kept stumbling through in the dark. Suddenly everything makes sense. And here's the big question. How do you tell the difference between fair criticism and a toxic projection? Because the line between the two is razor thin. If you don't learn to tell them apart, you'll keep paying the price. In the next section, I'll show you the practical signs, the giveaways, that let you catch this mechanism before it robs you of your peace. In 1913, Jung wrote about a case that left a mark on his career. The patient was charismatic, intelligent, articulate. At first glance, he even seemed like a victim of the world. Polite, kind, with that sparkle in his eyes that made people trust him instantly. You've probably met someone like that. Someone who walks into a room and wins everybody's sympathy, looking like they couldn't hurt a fly. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Over time, Jung noticed something deeply unsettling. This patient didn't just criticize people. He described each one of them with an almost chilling conviction. There was always someone manipulative, someone ill-intentioned, someone jealous. The disturbing part? All those traits were actually his own. He just couldn't see it. He truly believed he was surrounded by enemies. Within a few months, the damage was catastrophic. 3 important relationships collapsed, and 2 co-workers lost their jobs because of this man's accusations. None of it was conscious scheming or planned lies. It was his shadow, projected onto others, disguised as absolute truth. For him, it was reality. For his victims, it was a wrecking ball. And here's where it hits closer to home. Maybe you've dealt with someone like this. That person who seemed kind, caring, even protective, until suddenly they turned everything against you. It's a gut punch to realize that someone you trusted could cast you as the villain in a story you never asked to play. That kind of betrayal doesn't just wreck your reputation. It shakes your grip on reality itself. If that's ever happened to you, you need to hear this. You're not alone. This is one of the most painful dynamics Jung observed, and one of the most common. Spotting the pattern brings huge relief. No, you're not crazy. You were caught in the blast of a projection disguised as truth. And that's why this warning matters, because people who don't get it end up lost in the trap. But before we move on, let me ask a quick favor. If this is resonating with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me which country you're watching from. I want to see how far this message is reaching. Now, in the next part, I'll show you how these signs sneak into everyday life almost invisibly, and why even the smartest people miss them. When someone projects with absolute conviction, they don't just create gossip or a simple misunderstanding. They create an invisible field where even reasonable people start to believe the lie. Picture this: your boss, in a meeting, suddenly accuses you of being resistant to change. You never said no, you just asked for time to think it through. But the sheer weight of his conviction shifts the atmosphere. Suddenly, every pair of eyes in the room is on you, as if you're the problem on the team. His certainty spreads through the room faster than a virus. The same thing happens in families. Imagine a relative hammering the line, "You've always been ungrateful. Never mind how much you've already sacrificed," said often enough with rock-solid certainty, it sticks. Before long, others nod along, and suddenly you're branded the ungrateful one. Even if you're the one who gave the most. That's the shadow of another person thrown onto you, only dressed up as an undeniable truth. The injustice that comes from this is suffocating. Jung warned about this because it's not just an individual psychological trick. It's a collective phenomenon. Conviction spreads like radiation, infecting everyone nearby. Today, you see the same pattern in WhatsApp groups that ruin reputations, in workplaces that turn their backs on a colleague, in religious or political communities that exile someone in the name of absolute truth. The distortion field spreads like wildfire in dry grass. The cruelest part is how you feel inside it. Powerless. You try to explain, but the more you talk, the more it seems to prove their point. It's like calmly saying, "I'm not nervous," only to be accused of being nervous because you're trying to explain. That loop is one of projection's deadliest poisons. It turns your defense into evidence against you. No matter what you do, it feels like you're always losing ground. Ancient traditions pointed this out long before Jung. Jesus spoke about the log in your own eye before judging the speck in your brother's. Buddhism warned about illusions the mind throws onto others. What Jung did was translate into psychology what spiritual teachers had already seen. The evil someone swears they see in you is often the reflection of what they can't face in themselves. That's the hidden truth almost nobody catches. And now you might be asking, so what do you actually do when you're stuck in this distortion field? How do you avoid becoming the aggressor while defending yourself, and at the same time not let yourself get destroyed by a lie? That's where we start building the map I promised you. A clear protocol to recognize, protect yourself, and avoid repeating the same destructive pattern without even noticing. It's inside this distortion field that the clearest signs of a dangerous projection start to show up. The first one is absolute certainty about your intentions. No matter what you say or how you explain yourself, the person insists, "I know what you meant to do." It's as if they've got some kind of X-ray vision into your mind, ignoring the fact that, in reality, nobody can ever fully know another person's thoughts. That's your first red flag. You've probably heard lines like these before. "You only said that to hurt me," or "I know you did it on purpose." There's no room for nuance. The conviction is so rigid it twists every move into proof against you. If you help, it's manipulation. If you stay quiet, it's indifference. If you speak up, it's an attack. That kind of accusation is suffocating because it traps you in a no-win maze where every step you take confirms a guilt that doesn't exist. The second sign is immunity to evidence. Here, it doesn't matter how much proof you put on the table. You can show messages, documents, witnesses. None of it gets through the person's psychological armor. It's like their mind is bulletproof against any fact that challenges their belief. That's the moment you realize you're not in a rational conversation anymore. You're up against something closer to blind faith about who you supposedly are. Think about a simple example. At work, you turn in the report on time, signed and dated. Still, someone says, "You never meet deadlines." You show the proof, but nothing changes. Or at home, you go out of your way to be present, yet you still hear, "You're never really here." Hard evidence becomes irrelevant because subjective conviction has already won. And that sparks moral outrage, and rightly so. When these two signs show up together, they create a trap that's almost impossible to escape. Because now you're judged not by what you actually did, but by what the other person believes you did. And even when reality screams the truth, the narrative still comes out louder. This is where many people break, not from the accusation itself, but from the crushing sense that nothing they do can ever restore the truth. It's a battlefield where helplessness grows with every attempt to explain yourself. If absolute certainty and immunity to evidence already feel suffocating, what comes next makes things even harder to handle. The third sign is disproportionate emotion. The person reacts with such over-the-top anger or pain that you almost feel forced to believe you really did something terrible. It's like any small detail suddenly turns into a tragedy. A simple disagreement becomes proof that you're cruel or insensitive. You've probably seen this play out. You make a neutral comment, and the other person bursts into tears or lashes out, claiming you deeply hurt them. The reaction is so intense it shuts down any attempt at dialogue. And it's precisely that emotional intensity that warps how others see the situation. Because everyone thinks, "Come on, nobody would react like that without a reason." Exaggeration becomes its own twisted kind of authority. The fourth sign is the constant victim narrative. This person always has a story where they're the one being wronged, persecuted, betrayed. No matter the context, their role never changes. It's like they're carrying around a pre-written script. They're always the victim, and everyone else is cast as the villain. Over time, the pattern wears thin because you start to notice that every story follows the same mold, and sooner or later you end up playing the villain in their script. The fifth sign is one of the most dangerous: social recruitment. It's not enough for them to accuse you directly. They need to gather allies against you. All of a sudden, you catch different looks, sideways conversations, people who once trusted you now doubting. That's when projection turns into something collective. The distortion field expands, and you feel like you're fighting an invisible crowd. This process is like a secret trial. You're never invited to defend yourself, but you've already been judged and condemned behind closed doors. The one spreading the narrative knows the power multiplies when it's shared. And this is where most people break. Not from the first accusation, but from the crushing loneliness that follows. Isolation becomes the sharpest weapon projection has. Now maybe you're thinking, if I can recognize all these signs, how do I respond without making it worse? That's the key. Because the difference between sinking and standing strong comes down to knowing exactly what to do in the right moment. And that's what we'll break down in the next section. The response map that separates those who get swallowed from those who grow stronger when facing this pattern. When you put all these signs together, you start to realize they don't show up randomly. There's a progression, almost like climbing a staircase, step by step. The first stage is the initial projection. The person throws onto you something that, deep down, is theirs. It can be subtle, almost invisible, like a veiled accusation or a sideways comment. That's the moment when the seed of conflict gets planted. Next comes the crystallization of conviction. Here, the person doesn't just project, they fully buy into their own version. It's no longer a casual remark, it's absolute certainty. From that point on, they interpret every gesture of yours through that lens, and every little nuance becomes proof against you. It's like the narrative hardens into stone, and no amount of dialogue can crack it. The third stage is reality distortion. The conviction starts spreading into the environment. People around you begin to believe, even when the evidence says otherwise. It's like a magnetic field bending collective perception. You start noticing the odd looks, the awkward silences, the backhanded comments. Objective reality loses ground to the subjective story being pushed forward. The fourth stage is social recruitment. The person isn't satisfied keeping their certainty to themselves, they need allies. So they start talking to others, planting doubts, repeating stories. Slowly, you realize you're not facing one individual anymore, you're up against a network that's bought into the same version. This stage stings the most because it erodes trust and belonging in your relationships. The fifth stage is collective possession. This is when the whole group has swallowed the idea. The narrative isn't questioned anymore. It's treated as official truth. At this point, even people who had nothing to do with the situation start repeating the story as if it were a fact. You're no longer dealing with an opinion. You're fighting a socially shared belief, almost impossible to break. And the last stage is systematic exclusion of the victim. Now you're gradually cut out, no invites to meetings, no calls to gatherings, no role in decisions. Isolation becomes the rule. This is the point of no return where many break inside. That's why understanding this six-step escalation is crucial. It gives you clarity. The earlier you spot the pattern, the greater your chances of acting and protecting yourself before it's too late. When you realize you're caught in this kind of dynamic, the worst thing you can do is lose yourself trying to win the argument. It's not about convincing the other person. That almost never happens. It's about protecting your integrity. The first move is to turn inward and trust what you feel. If something doesn't sit right, if the discomfort is real, it's because distortion is at play. Those inner signals are your compass. They keep you from getting swallowed by the manipulation field. At the same time, you've got to resist the urge to over-explain. The more you justify yourself, the more ammo you hand over for the other person to twist. The secret is to keep it short, sharp, almost minimalist. Swap long explanations for simple, grounded phrases. I was there. It was delivered on time. That kind of answer closes loopholes, limits interpretations, and saves your energy for what truly matters, your sanity. Another way to protect yourself is to put the facts on paper. Keep a record of conversations, dates, key situations. Not to convince the attacker they're already locked in, but to anchor reality in something solid. In the middle of a psychological storm, even you can start doubting your own memory. Having records is like switching on a flashlight in a dark room. Truth stands right in front of you, not just in your recollection. It's also crucial to limit how much you share. The more emotional or informational access the person has, the more ammunition they can use. Learn to set quiet boundaries. Share only what's necessary, nothing more. At work, keep everything documented through formal channels. In personal life, filter out topics you know could be twisted. That's not paranoia, it's smart protection. And don't forget, you don't have to face this alone. Reaching out for support, bringing in witnesses, or having a trusted person by your side can completely shift the game. Sometimes, just the presence of a third party changes the tone of an interaction. It's like turning on the lights in a room that used to be all shadows. Belonging cures the sting of isolation, and even one ally can give you back your sense of reality. Finally, there's strategic withdrawal. When nothing changes, when the environment's already poisoned, stepping back is the healthiest move. Reducing contact, setting firm boundaries, refusing pointless debates. That's not defeat, that's maturity. You're choosing not to let yourself be destroyed. And that's when clarity hits. By following this protocol, you realize you had more power all along, and protecting your peace is the highest form of victory. The real danger doesn't come from openly aggressive people, but from those who project their shadow with absolute conviction. That's what silently destroys relationships, reputations, and even entire lives. Awareness is your shield because once you see the pattern, the poison loses its power. To see is to survive. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever gone through something like this? Being unfairly accused or cast as the villain when you've done nothing wrong? How did you deal with it? Share your story in the comments. Your experience could help and validate someone who's facing the same thing right now. If this video resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. And don't stop here. Watch the next video that's popping up on your screen, because in it I'll continue this conversation and show you how to protect yourself even more from these signs almost nobody sees.